Today, a Republican nationalist is running for Congress to replace Representative Nancy Mace. He served time behind bars for his actions at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th and was later pardoned by President Donald Trump. However, he says he is not a rubber stamp for the president and in fact disagrees with some of the things that Trump has done since he's been elected. I'm Nick Reagan, and today we are talking to Tyler Dykes about his views and his platform on We The Palmetto. We talked to Lowcountry voters. Trump was in true campaign form. Voting is officially underway. Joe Biden spoke here in the heart of downtown.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, joining me now, Tyler Dykes. He is running for Congress for Nancy Mace's seat, which is up for grabs. A big, wide open field, lots of Republicans, also a lot of Democrats running in this race. But first off, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's start off with maybe what you're known for right now. The January 6th stuff here. You were one of 1,400 people, roughly, that were arrested for that protest, riot, storming, whatever you want to call it, up at the Capitol after President Donald Trump's defeat to Joe Biden. I just want, well, and we should back up just a little bit. You were given 50-some months. President pardoned you, out and about. Talk to me a little bit about why you were at that Stop the Steal rally and your involvement with all of it.
Sure. And the first thing, though, I want to talk about is that pardon. There is no better feeling in the world than when you hear over to the intercom, Dykes, you're going home. You've got a pardon from the president. Nothing beats that feeling. But the whole reason that I was put into prison to begin with was for, of course, attending the rally and going into the Capitol. So, of course, Trump said, he went up and he gave his speech right at the beginning of the day. And the whole purpose of the speech was to essentially to put on this public pressure of the idea that we need to look into some of the election irregularities. There were fraudulent ballots. There were dead people that voted in different places, stolen Social Security cards, all sorts of different stuff like that was happening. And so the main purpose was not to be violent. It was to help encourage a recount, to go back and look at the votes and make sure that they were actually valid, because there were absolutely irregularities with a lot of the stuff that was going on. I don't know if you were looking into it or reporting on it at all. There was an FBI raid, I believe in Fulton County, Georgia, a few months back, where they discovered something like 200,000 bad ballots that were cast in Georgia in one county. And so just stuff like that needed to be looked into. And that was the whole reason for going. So I went up there, I drove up there, and I attended Trump's speech, and he said, okay, go to the Capitol and make your voices peacefully and patriotically heard. So I went over to the Capitol building, where then the police deliberately escalated things well beyond where they needed to go. They did not tell the crowd to disperse. They did not tell the crowd to go away. Instead, once the crowd was assembled and peaceful, they then shot percussive grenades and tear gas over the crowd, hitting them in the back, forcing the crowd forward. And then they ran forward, jostled the crowd, hit the crowd, and backed further up the steps. As the crowd came forward, they would hit back up, all the way up the steps of the East Rotunda, where I was. And when I reached the top of the steps, they say that I did a Nazi salute. Now, this supposed Nazi salute looked like this. And I have that video footage, and I'm more than happy to share it with anyone who asks. That was not a Nazi salute. And if you notice in the court documents, they say that Dykes gave a celebratory, he celebrated reaching the tops of the steps. And then it says later in the court records, he did what appears to be a Nazi salute. They could not say that I did one, because I'd be able to, of course, challenge that in court. And the judge denied any additional evidence being able to be presented. And so the simple fact of the matter is that for going up the steps, there was no wave, nothing, or there was no salute, nothing like that. Get up the steps, and then that's when things start to get a little bit ugly. I am towards the front, and there's this 5'3" woman standing a few people in front of me. And one of the police overextends, hits the woman on the top of her head, sort of knocks her down, and all of the crowd reach in and grab a hold of his shield. They pull it out of his hands. I reach forward to get it, and I get a hold of it after it's already out of the cop's hands for the most part. And so from there, everyone else lets go as the cops begin pepper spraying, and I hold up the shield to defend myself from getting sprayed. For that, they charged me with 2 counts of resisting, assaulting, or impeding a lawful officer in the carrying out of his duties, and robbery with a deadly weapon, which is like a 30-year charge where the robbery was the shield and the deadly weapon was also the shield. And so there were a lot of people, and I got arrested for it a few years later. There were a lot of people advocating for pardons throughout this whole process, primarily because people's rights were violated, because they didn't allow due process, they didn't allow the evidence to be spoken of fairly and freely. And so because of that, we really didn't get things treated fairly. So even if somebody deserved to go away for some of their behavior, generally speaking, they got much higher sentences than an equivalent person would do. For example, a few years back, Democrats, liberals stormed the Capitol building in protest. And like a year later did the same thing. They went into the Capitol building while it was in session. And they all got misdemeanor trespassing charges and like a $200 fine. Meanwhile, I was in federal prison with someone who got a misdemeanor trespassing charge and a year of prison time. So just there seemed to be a bit of a 2 tiers of justice. And that is the reason why I got that pardon.
Okay, I want to bring up the sort of other side of that, because the DOJ, they sent out the release that lists out what everybody does. You're very familiar, but they said that you were among those leading the effort to push officers up the steps of the Capitol, after which you celebrated. They mentioned, obviously, the Nazi salute. You deny that. Then they say that you grabbed a hold of one of the officer's riot shields, forcefully pulling it from the officer, and then leaving him vulnerable. And he was later, I guess, attacked or subsequently pepper sprayed by the group. Is your interpretation of this is that what the DOJ has written and accused you of is overblowing the situation?
Correct.
And you mentioned, though, that the Nazi salute was actually just a wave to a friend.
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your social media here for just a moment, because the very first thing in your biographies is you write is that you identify as a nationalist.
Of course.
What does that mean to you?
That means that I love America. And I love Americans of all races, peoples, colors, and religions, of course. But I love America. I love the South. I love the idea of America. I love us as a nation and as a country. And I think it's something we need to uphold. The founding fathers, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, even Robert E. Lee, all the heroes of the entirety of American history is something that we should respect and look up to as inspiration for the future. And so when I say I'm a nationalist, I'm an American nationalist. I am a patriotic person who wants to preserve America for the next 100, 200, whatever years.
When people see that, though, they associate that term with alt-right, with Nazis, and with racists. Is that not how you interpret the term?
Absolutely not. Above all, like, for example, the Ukrainians right now that are fighting against Russia, the same Ukrainians that have support from the entirety of Western media. The entire time they were occupied by the Soviet Union, the entire time they were occupied by the Russian Empire, even till today, they were called nationalists. So a nationalist is someone that functionally wants to have their own independent state because they love the people of their country and they want to make life better for the people of their country. Well, my country is America. The people of my country are Americans. And so the same way that those Ukrainian nationalists feel about Ukraine and Ukrainians is the same way that I feel about all of America and about the people of this country. And so if someone has a different idea of what they feel that is, that's fine. That's my interpretation.
To be clear, though, you don't support some of the alt-right groups that have identified with the same term, Proud Boys, groups like that.
Would you classify them as a white nationalist organization?
I believe that the Southern Poverty Law Center does.
Wasn't Enrique Tarrio a Latino who's the head of the Proud Boys, or am I mistaken there? We have a bunch of non-white people leading white nationalist movements. I don't know. I wouldn't call them a nationalist group myself. I don't really know what you would call them, but no, I don't identify with a lot of this extremist rhetoric and a lot of that stuff that's going on. Okay. Because what I want are practical solutions to fix the problems that are impacting everyday Americans.
All right, does not identify with extremist factions, just want to solve some of the problems. You already mentioned Ukraine, and I think that this sort of fits in the same realm as our support for Israel. Talk to me about how you identify, or rather how you interpret the way the United States should be intermingling with the war in Ukraine and the war in Gaza.
I think that America needs to mind our own business and stay out of the business of the whole rest of the world.
Both of those wars.
All of them.
Okay.
Every war. We do not need to be taking sides. We do not need to be getting involved overseas. We have $40 trillion of debt. We have a mass immigration issue, legal and illegal, that is making it difficult for my generation to get ahead. We have a jobs problem where 49% of recent college graduates are underemployed. And so how can we justify spending billions or trillions of dollars funding this side of a war or this side of the war when our own people are suffering, when we have 22 veteran suicides a day, when we have just our armed forces being looked down on the second they leave the service and not able to get the help that they need? The housing market is ridiculous. It is way too expensive to get into a home. The rent prices are out of control. And so insurance, health insurance, I mean, there are so many problems that our government should be focusing on that we're not. We're spending all this political capital trying to work on foreign countries' benefits for Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, Russia. I say, to heck with all of them. Let's focus on our problems at home.
So you would pull out all of the money that we've invested or are planning on investing into Israel and Ukraine.
Correct.
And I think just the other day, President Trump did his peace council. I might be getting the actual proper noun wrong, but his peace organization for Gaza and announced a bunch of money that is going to be invested into that area. Is that a mistake?
Good for them. What about America?
Sure.
I mean, again, we're trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, and this is the focus. And so, the man pardon me, he will always have my respect, but please focus on America. Focus on fixing the problems. Rent, housing prices, insurance, immigration. These are and Epstein. I didn't even mention that yet. The whole Epstein files,
Yep.
No one's being arrested for that. And so what? So we're going out of our way to rebuild Gaza's infrastructure, but not our infrastructure. We're spending money to support Israel's military, but not our military. I mean, all of these priorities are way out of whack. So from my perspective, no matter which side of the conflict that you take on, and personally, let's stay out of it.
Yeah.
Let's keep the investment where it belongs to make the lives of people in this country better. And from my perspective, it's like when you're on an airplane and they tell you, and you have the stewardess comes or the steward and says, hey, if anything happens and the mask dropped from the ceiling, make sure to put your own mask on so you can get oxygen before you help anyone else's. Otherwise, you might pass out and then you and the other person die. So right now we are sacrificing ourselves and our future to maybe help them and putting ourselves in a position where we won't even be able to make it ourselves.
So what I hear you saying is that you can support and be an ally of the president while at the same time disagreeing with some of the things that are a priority to him,
Absolutely.
like Israel, like Venezuela, that we haven't touched on either. Is that correct?
That's right.
Interesting. I mean, I talk to so many Republicans that are allies of the president, and I ask them all the time, tell me one thing that you disagree with the president on. And they either don't answer the question or they come up with something, or we don't like the same favorite color or something,
Right.
So it's interesting to me to hear you talk about real policy points that you disagree with the president on, foreign policy being one of them. Another foreign policy issue that I think is big for you is the AIPAC. That is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee that supports both Democrats and Republicans, has long supported the leadership of both parties. Mike Johnson is a big recipient of money. You want them to register as a foreign lobbyist, agent, organization, etc.
Under
right?
FARA, correct.
Why?
Well, it's for the similar reasons that Thomas Massey laid out when he spoke to a number of people, where they just have undue influence in American politics. And they say, it's Americans that are donating and it's not run by Israel. But I mean, it's just very coincidental, everything that's happening. The way that it works is you have these politicians get in, they send money to Israel, and then Israel funnels money into AIPAC, and then AIPAC gives money to the politicians. And, it's not just AIPAC that's doing this. There are a lot of different PACs PACs that are out there that are foreign, that are advocating for specific interests. And you have a lot of domestic big corporate PACs that are pumping tons and tons of money into a lot of these things as well. And so I'm opposed to all of them, but I think it's especially outrageous that a foreign country can have so much money in our politics, advocating for special relationship with one country above all the rest. They should be able to lobby, but the same way that every other country on earth has been forced to lobby by registering as a foreign agent, under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And so that's my position there.
You're a big proponent of basically deporting anybody who's here illegally.
Correct.
How do you keep the economy rolling if we deport everybody that is here? I know that sounds like a silly thing to ask, but we have a lot of people that are here working jobs.
We do.
That are needed to keep the economy rolling. Let me back up. What does it look like under your plan to deport immigrants? What does that look like?
Well, to begin with, I don't think we need to have ICE going out there and roughing up every person they can find who is illegal. When I was in federal prison for January 6th, they stuck me into a room with 10 cartel members who were illegal aliens from South America. And they described all the different ways in which they got free stuff from the American government, free food. They just walked in the hospitals whenever they wanted, got free medical care. They get all these different government benefits and different programs. Some of them stole people's social security numbers and used that to get on benefits. And so all of them, every single one of them said that the only reason they were in America was for the money. Everyone is out for their own self-interest. So you want to send them home, it's easy. Make it so it no longer makes financial sense for them to be here. So if you cut off their bank accounts, cut off the money flows, you shut down these government programs that are funneling money into illegal aliens' homes, then also go after the business owners that are knowingly hiring large amounts of illegal aliens. Then all of the other business owners will start to fire their illegal aliens. And the result will be they can't get jobs, they can't get government funding, they can't get any benefit from being here financially. They'll go home. They'll go back to where their friends and family are. They don't particularly like America, the vast majority of them, but they're here because they see it as a better outcome for themselves than if they were back home. So if we take away that better outcome, we can actually remove millions and millions of illegal aliens a year without any violence whatsoever, just by changing the incentives. So that's the first thing that I would do there. And
so you would roll back what ICE is doing right now. They don't need to be out on the streets enforcing immigration laws.
They do, but they don't need to be going out there and fighting rioters and all this other kind of stuff like Minneapolis. That was a mistake, I believe, the way that it was escalated. And I think also, quite frankly, in Minneapolis, there needed to be FBI investigations into the fraud more than we needed ICE. The vast majority of the Somali community is legal, are legal refugees. And so they're just scamming the system, quite a large number of them. And so did we need to have 1,000 ICE agents go in? And how many people did they arrest? 1,000, 2,000? You would have been so much better off prosecuting the fraud, turning off the money supply, and just changing the incentives. Because right now, even if ICE might kick down your door, they make so much more money here than in their home country that it is worth it to them maybe getting shot if they stay in the country by ICE. That is how much better it is here. And so if you don't change the incentives, there's no purpose. So in my opinion, it would be a dual operation where you have ICE, of course, going after all of the criminals and the murderers and the killers and those kind of people, while also providing incentives for people to leave, where if you don't leave, you get all your assets taken, you lose your job, your money, your government assistance. But if you do leave and you turn yourself in, you get a paycheck. And so if you change the financial incentives, you would we could keep ICE or not do whatever we wanted with ICE. That depends. But we could easily deport tens of millions of illegals a year just by changing the incentives for them.
Does ICE need an expansion in funding? I know they're talking about that up in Congress, but is from your opinion and from what you've laid out, does ICE need to be bigger? Does it need more money? I
think that the amount of funding that they received back, I think it was about 9 or 10 months ago, something like that, was a very good amount. It was a necessary increase in budget for hiring, for getting people trained, for doing border patrol, working with them, getting the new agents. That was excellent, and I think needs to be maintained. Because, you need to have both the carrot and the stick. ICE is the stick, and take economic indicators and different things like that are the stick. And then you have the carrot of we'll pay you thousands of dollars to go home.
Okay,
and we would be way more effective that way.
How do you address the economic issues that we have that, the jobs and things that are performed by, quite frankly, illegal labor? All those people need to go?
Yes, every last illegal alien in this country needs to go for the simple reason of the laws of supply and demand. If you have 100 jobs available and you have 100 Americans that want jobs, everyone is employed.
Do we have enough people to fill all those jobs?
I believe we do, yes.
Enough willing people to fill all those jobs?
I would say not for the wages that they're offering. That's part of the issue, and I got a solution to fix that.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying. And so, but anyway, if there are 100 jobs available and there are 100 Americans, then that means it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You bring in then another 50 illegal aliens in whom will do the job far, far cheaper. Now those 50 illegal aliens get 50 jobs, and now you have 100 Americans competing for those 50 jobs that are still available. And now all of a sudden you just cut wages for Americans in half. Because there's now half of the ratio of the amount of jobs available. So even though a lot of these illegal aliens are good people, and I've met many people who are illegal, and I've actually liked a number of them. I would consider myself almost to be friends with them. Some people I met out and about, even in the Beaufort County area of South Carolina. A lot of them are good people, but unfortunately, because of their illegal status, their employers can exploit that and say, you need to work for me for $8 an hour or you're getting deported. The same thing with the H-1B visas. The employers have leverage over them to force them to work substantially lower pay than is necessary to survive, quite frankly, with the amount of inflation. And so in order to fix things economically, I think we need to do a lot of things at once. And it will be very difficult to get all of this passed, but I think it's necessary. Number one is we do have to have deportations. We have to put on these economic repercussions, and we have to get the illegals out. Deportations, voluntary or otherwise, they have to happen. Next, we have to end legal immigration as well, the H-1B, the opt visas, and all of that. But in addition to that, we have to stop or prevent the bleeding that could happen as you've described economically. So I would support, of course, a total end to all property taxes for all business owners and primary residence holders throughout the state. And I'll use the bully pulpit of Congress to help influence the state electorate into actually passing those that fully eliminates that property taxes, especially for business owners. And that way, even if they have to pay double the wages for an American, the lower property taxes or elimination of property taxes can help make that up. Additionally, I want to lower or eliminate most payroll taxes as well. And that's another reason why a lot of illegals are hired. When I was running my own business, I got up to about having 5 employees. In about 6 months, I ramped up to $25,000 a month in revenue. And I was paying one of my employees somewhere between $25 and $30 an hour. And I was paying as much money in taxes to the government as he was taking home in his paycheck. And so I could have literally afforded to double his pay if there weren't as high of taxes involved with regards to being able to get employed. So if I think you hit that from all angles, you lower the taxes, lower the payroll taxes, you deport the illegals, and you stop the legal visa immigration, you can actually drastically increase the wages that these business owners are paying while not cutting into their profits. And so I think that's a very important thing, and we need to do all of it to avoid any kind of economic downfall. And once those wages go up, people will flock to these jobs. But right now, inflation in the housing market and the different rent markets and everything like that has just made it so a lot of these jobs are unaffordable for the average American.
I want to hear your stance on housing, though, because I think that you've got a pretty non-controversial couple of points on housing, but I'll just let you take it from there. You mentioned certain organizations, certain people, certain businesses shouldn't be allowed to buy single-family homes?
Correct, including BlackRock, Blackstone, and a lot of these major investment firms that own so many of these properties. Charlie Kirk, for example, about 2 months before he died, he said that at the current rate that BlackRock, Blackstone, that they're buying properties, that they will own 30% of all single-family homes by 2030. That is a huge huge number. And that's also a huge problem because traditional real estate investing involved buying a home and converting it into a duplex, or it involved buying two-door and converting it into four, or building apartment complexes, or going out and building homes and renting those out. But more and more recently, we're seeing that they're actually just buying existing homes. And so now you have my generation, and even millennials and Gen X are trying to compete with these big giant corporations for buying homes. And quite unfortunately, a large amount of the people that these big corporations rent out to are actually work visa holders that have vouchers from the government to be able to work. And so not only are they outcompeting American-born citizens, but they're also just handing over those homes primarily to people that, quite frankly, I don't think should be here. Again, they're good people, but they're causing problems for the average American. So that's something that I would do there. And again, if they want to get involved in condos, if they want to get involved in townhouses, in apartments and building, if they want to build single family homes and rent those out, please, we need to increase the housing supply. But the way that they're acting, they are decreasing the housing supply, artificially driving up those prices and causing a lot of problems for everyone else.
I mean, this is the same proposal that President Trump announced a couple weeks ago, correct?
It's similar, but it needs to be in Congress. We have to have it into law.
Why? I mean, I know that it's only been a couple of weeks since Trump made the idea public and gave his sort of stamp of approval to this concept. Why do you think Congress hasn't acted on something like this? It seems like a popular notion.
It does seem like a popular notion, but unfortunately, quite a large amount of the big donors to both parties are people that benefit. And BlackRock, Blackstone have a lot of other investments in a lot of other industries, and a lot of these industries donate to congressmen. And so I think that's a big part of the problem. I also think that, again, this administration is more focused on foreign issues than domestic. And so they're not using the political capital to get some of these good laws passed. They're using this political capital to do strikes on Iran or prepare and move the carrier groups over to deal with Iran. And that's so much money and political power that could be being used to get these laws passed. And so I think it's a dual issue of that the congressmen aren't super motivated to do it, but they might do it, but they're not feeling super motivated to do it. And a combination of just not that being the main focus of the administration right now.
I mean, has this administration simply lost focus on what's most important to Americans?
I really, really want to say that they're doing everything right. I really want to stand here and say Trump is doing everything perfect, everything is great, but I'm talking to people on the ground. I've gone out there and I've met with people, and it doesn't matter who you talk to, no one is happy with the direction things are going with right now. Doesn't matter left wing, right wing, liberal, conservative, young or old. The only difference is how much they trust things to get fixed in the future. That's the only real difference. So no one's happy, but especially a lot of the older conservative folks think we're just got to give Trump a little bit more time and he'll fix it. And I say that that's probably, if we can make our voices heard to President Trump, I am confident that we can turn this around, bring back the focus to domestic issues, and actually make life better for the average American.
It sounds like, you know, despite sort of maybe what people would believe reading the headlines about you, that you are not necessarily a rubber stamp in Congress for this administration and their policies.
That's correct. I am not just going to be a rubber stamper. And again, much respect to President Trump for pardoning me. That's something that he followed through on. The first few months of this administration were some of the best times of my life, right? The January, February, March of last year were phenomenal. Every single day there was a new news headline where he was doing something fantastic that needed to be done. And I want to go back to that. And so, you know, I'm not just going to rubber stamp every single thing that he does. Like right now, for example, when Pam Bondi, for example, went out and said, oh, the Dow's at 50,000, so stop talking about Epstein. They're hurting children. They are brutalizing children, and we have to forget about it because the stock market is high. I think that is egregious, and day one, if someone doesn't beat me to it, I will file articles of impeachment against Pam Bondi.
Wow, that's a big statement. We'll have to see, you know, how that all shakes out. Do you think an impeachment vote could be coming for her in the next handful of months?
Coming. She's out.
She's out.
I don't think she'll make it all the way through this term. There's no way. There's too much bipartisan anger at her, to the point where you have even people like Lindsey Graham right now suggesting replacements. And someone as well connected as he would not be suggesting replacements if they didn't think her removal was imminent. So if I had to guess, and this could be wrong, I would say that it's probably likely that she might resign here in 4 to 6 months, maybe. That's all speculation. Sure. I don't know what's going on in the White House. I don't have an in. But I don't see a way that she manages to survive this without arrests for at least 2 or 3 people on the Epstein files. There's just no way she makes it otherwise.
Okay, I want to give you your shot here to give your final message to voters. But before I get there, I just want to pick your brain just for a moment more about some of your personal heroes, some of the people that you look up to when you're thinking about how you're going to be as a member of Congress. Who are some of those folks that you look up to? We already know that you have a strong allegiance to President Trump, but who else influences you?
Well, obviously, my faith very much so influences me. Whenever I think about some of the things that I've had to endure, I think that it is nothing compared to what Christ on the cross had to endure. And it says in Matthew that blessed is he that suffers because of righteousness. And I firmly believe that while I've made mistakes, I have absolutely suffered well beyond what was necessary in the pursuit of justice and what is good and just. And so because of that, I actually feel emboldened by my faith in Jesus and driven by that in order to become better. As, of course, some of my, more recent heroes, that would have to be, of course, George Washington, his, braving, going across there on Christmas Eve and destroying the British and winning freedom for America. That was a beautiful, beautiful time. And that really showed the resilience, the grit, and the discipline of what the American people can accomplish. And so I would say those are my top choices.
I like that you went from your least recent pick of Jesus 2,000 years ago to Washington 200 years ago as your more recent person to emulate. Good stuff. All right, give us your pitch to voters. Why should they vote for you this year?
Sure thing. A lot of you are not going to agree with me on everything that I say. A lot of you are going to not like my history, my backstory, or the different elements of what I have done and said. But I tell you this, if you're a radical leftist or a liberal or you want more socialist policies, you are never going to see single payer health care. You are never going to see UBI. You are never going to see anything that is done to benefit the people without first challenging the elite power structures that are currently there. So you might not like me. You might not like my immigration policies. You might not like my stance on Israel or on Gaza or on any of these other issues. But the simple fact of the matter is, I am the only Republican in this race who is willing to take the fight to the elites and the entire Epstein class in Washington. And so if you want justice, if you want change, I am your candidate. And then once we have driven out that corruption, once we have helped to make it so that Congress operates on the faith of the people and do what the people want, then we can sit down and have a good faith discussion about what actually has to be done for this country to make things better. So you nor I can get anything done we want without first dealing with that corruption. So vote Tyler Dykes for Congress this June 9th if you want to see change.
All right, Tyler Dykes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
And make sure you don't miss a single episode of We The Palmetto by subscribing anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can watch this episode and all previous episodes on the Live 5 streaming service on apps like Roku. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.